Stoicism was one of the four schools of philosophy in ancient Athens, and a key player in Hellenistic philosophy. Its name derives from the ancient Stoa of Athens in the Forum, where it was founded by the influential thinker Zeno of Citium. Zeno was thus its first head, but it was subsequently taken over by Cleanthes, and then later Chrysippus, who is regarded as its most famous figure. Nevertheless, Stoicism flourished remarkably in the Roman Empire, with Cicero, Arrius Didymus, Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius all key players in its revival. The only surviving works, however, are from the imperial period. These include works of Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius. Therefore, we rely on doxographies by later writers for information on the early Stoic writers such as Zeno of Citium and Chrysippus. So first of all, we are going to start by talking about the telos, i.e. purpose. Stoicism starts with a relatively uncontroversial premise that happiness should be the principal end and should not be obtained for the sake of anything else. Stoicism can therefore be described as eudaimonist, a belief shared by other schools such as the Epicureans. A core belief is that while happiness is the goal, many people who think they have achieved it are in fact mistaken. Stoics delve into exactly what might lead to genuine happiness. Zeno of Citium stated that happiness constitutes living in agreement, Cleanthes that it constitutes living in accordance with nature. Living in agreement refers to the idea that one should have a clear aim in mind and never stray from that path or muddle it with competing aims. Living in agreement, by extension, means living in agreement with nature, nature being oneself and one's soul, as well as the cosmos as a whole, conveying a sense of unity between the individual and the universe. Nature here is to be defined in Stoicism as a rational and ordered system which governs the universe of which we are a part. Virtue. Virtue is what we need to achieve a particular telos or goal. Living virtuously means living an almost godlike life. Virtue is analogous with knowledge, since virtue is the perfected condition of reason, and knowledge is an integral part of reason. One example of an important and very prominent virtue is courage. Courage can be described as the enduring of something that you know is difficult, dangerous, or scary. Virtue features prominently in Meditations, the most famous surviving Stoic work written by the philosopher emperor Marcus Aurelius. For example, Marcus Aurelius writes the following: "A man such as this is he postpones no longer his ready place among the best, is in some way a priest and a minister of God. He responds to the divinity seated within him, and this renders the man unsullied by pleasure, unscathed by any pain, untouched by any wrong, unconscious of any wickedness, a wrestler for the greatest prize of all, to avoid being thrown by any passion, died to the core with justice, embracing with his whole heart all the experience allotted him, rarely, and when there is great need for the common good, wondering what others may be saying or doing or thinking." As you can see, this passage includes many different virtues. Some of the most important virtues are the classical virtues, what Plato called the cardinal virtues. These include prudence, justice, courage, and finally, moderation. Next, we're going to talk about the indifference. A key idea in Meditations is whether something is beneficial or harmful to one's nature, and only that determines whether it is good or bad. There are many things that neither benefit nor harm. These are known as the indifferents, meaning they essentially do not matter and therefore should be ignored. Something like pleasure or wealth benefit no more than they harm, therefore they cannot be described as good. This really is the crux of Stoic philosophy. It is the idea that one's external environment should play no role at all on one's pursuit of happiness, which is of course the ultimate telos. The only thing that is good is virtue, as it is beneficial to us. As long as you have your virtues, you will be happy, whatever else is happening to you in your life, i.e., whatever are the indifferents. Happiness is always unchanging, i.e., Stoics believe that there are not different degrees of happiness. Happiness always stays the same. If you are happy, you are happy, and if you are unhappy, you are unhappy. However, some Stoics argue that there are different degrees of these so-called indifferents. So whilst none of them will necessarily help achieve happiness, nevertheless, some should be regarded as having more value than others, hence they can be pursued to an extent. This is based on the idea that these indifferents are a set of binary opposites. For example, wealth and poverty, health and sickness. Thus, the preferred indifference, e.g., wealth over poverty and health over sickness, should be pursued. This approach has attracted much scholarly criticism, and indeed it is not difficult to see why. If happiness is the ultimate and only goal to human existence, then why should it be logical to pursue things that have no bearing on this happiness? As you can probably see, choosing between indifference becomes a tricky task, and it is necessary for one to aid another in their deliberation. Next, we are going to talk about the city of Zeus. This is the idea that all humans, as rational beings, belong to one symbolic universal city, conveying a sense of unity, and this city is emblematically called the City of Zeus, coined by Marcus Aurelius. Therefore, it is the job of everybody to help each other, for example, to follow the right track, i.e., that of stoicism. This is alluded to repeatedly in Meditations, which states that we should all do everything we can for the common interest. The city of Zeus becomes an extended metaphor for the cosmos. Just as a city includes all the citizens following the same law and sharing the same constitution, so in the universe everyone follows the law of Zeus, the god. Next, we are going to talk about impulse. Another fundamental belief is that of impulse. Non-rational beings such as animals form impulses based on changes to their constitution, so to speak. For example, the Stoic thinker Seneca uses the analogy of a baby turtle. Let's say a turtle has fallen onto its back, but realizes that this is an unfavorable situation for it. In other words, it harms its constitution. As a result, it creates an impulse to turn onto its other side. Stoic thinkers such as Marcus Aurelius believe that humans, as rational beings, can use reason to form rational impulses. So whilst non-humans can merely form impulses, humans can form rational impulses. Moving on, Stoics reject passions entirely. Passions may be defined as impulses that are not rational. Stoics believe that humans should stick to a rigid path that gives them happiness, whilst passions cannot provide this long-lasting happiness and indeed satisfaction. There are 4 types of passions: distress/pain, fear, appetite, and finally pleasure. The argument goes that giving attention to these passions causes one to clash with the reason that Zeus or the gods has instilled in all humans. Passions somewhat mirror indifference, except that they are feelings rather than a specific external state. In meditations, the key focus should be on the mind, and that through the power of the mind, sensations such as pain must simply be tolerated and not cause one to swerve off course. Now we shall talk about key points for meditations. First off, we have the dichotomy of control. We should not lose our temper or pour out our emotions over things that we cannot control, but rather we can control how we respond to such challenges. This can provide solace, but meditations teaches that it requires a lot of self-discipline. This is based on the recurring point that the mind has great strength, thus it can choose how to respond to different things. Meditation stresses that our own thoughts and actions are what we can control, thus we should not let external events shake or weaken us. Thus we read in meditations, "Remove the judgment, and you have removed the thought, I am hurt. Remove the thought, I am hurt, and the hurt itself is removed." Another key point for meditations is that of forgiveness. Marcus Aurelius teaches that we should also treat others with respect regardless of the wrongs they may have committed. He advises us to look deep within ourselves and examine our own souls. Inevitably, we will find faults of our own. Thus, we should always respond positively and without resentment towards others. Thus we read, "In this world there is only one thing of value, to live out your life in truth and justice, tolerant of those who are neither true nor just." Meditations is also a very reverential work. One of Marcus Aurelius' key messages is to trust the gods. He begins by listing all the blessings he has received from the gods and worships them as the ultimate giver and taker away of life, striking a deeply reverential tone. In particular, he credits the gods with creating a picture for him of how to live a life according to nature, as already discussed. In short, he credits the gods for his way of life. Thus we read, "That I acquired a clear and constant picture of what is meant by a life according to nature, so that, with regard to the gods, their communications from that world, their help and their inspiration, nothing now prevents me from living the life of nature." Next, we will talk about the transience of human life. Meditations teaches that we are a tiny part of a huge universe, and that we occupy only an infinitesimally brief moment compared with time in its entirety. Thus we read, "Think of the whole of existence of which you are the tiniest part. Think of the whole of time in which you have been assigned a brief and fleeting moment. Think of destiny. What fraction of that are you?" Another key takeaway from meditations is that we should not fear death. Meditations is packed with reflections on mortality. Marcus Aurelius argues that there is nothing to fear in death, since it is a mere function of nature that allows for the fulfillment of Earth's natural cycle. In fact, he calls it a dissolution of elements. Furthermore, Aurelius justifies his position that death is nothing to fear by arguing that history repeats itself. Therefore, it makes no difference whether one lives for 50 years or 100 years. In addition, he argues that it is only the present moment that can be lost at any given time, and what's there to fear in that?